Hello everyone, and welcome back to my series on Solidworks tutorials. Today we're going to revisit this part from my second video, and I'm going to show you how to make a drawing from this part. To start out, I'm going to click this drop down to the right of my new icon, and I'm going to choose the option to make a drawing from a part or assembly. It's going to open up this text box here. It gives you a lot of different options for paper size and orientation. You also have this option, which is display sheet format. If it's unchecked, the sheet that you're putting your parts on will just be a blank page. If I check it, it will have a border that will have things like your tolerance chart, the part name, the revision, who drew it, that sort of thing. Those are all fields that you can fill in. Just for cleanliness sakes, I'm going to uncheck that right now. When I click OK, it'll bring up a variety of views that you can drag over to your piece, to your sheet, pardon me. And I'm going to use this front view. It's going to plop that in right there, and if I drag one way or the other, it will just change which side you can see. So you can reorient these as much as you want. I'm going to put both the left and the right there, and I'm also going to put an isometric view. Let's see, that one's a little cooler. Once I've got all my views, I'm going to hit my green check mark, and then I can start to move these around. If I move the main view, I can move these up and down. If I'm playing around with the right and the left, the kind of daughter views of the parent view, I cannot move those up and down. I can only do that with my main view. So it's going to be a little bit tight with this sheet format, but I think I can probably make this work. I want to be able to see things like the holes. And also, let me go ahead and get this isometric view into position. This is completely independent. I can move that anywhere on the table. I'm not going to be putting any dimensions there. I really only want it there so you can kind of see what the part looks like as if you had it in your hand. Now, if I click the main view here, everything that's on the page right now is as it was in the solid model. That's not exactly what I want on my display. So instead, I can come up here to my display view, and I can choose any of the options that we can see in the model as well. And I think I really want this one, the wireframe with the hidden lines visible. Now, if I'm on the main view when I do that, it will change every other view. I don't necessarily need that for some of the others, so I can come to the daughter views and I can click just that one and maybe just make it into that regular wireframe. That makes it a little bit cleaner, and I won't have to see all the stuff that is also on the parent view. Where it gets really muddy is right here. So this is probably actually this hole, and if you were able to see it, you would actually have a dashed line here. That chamfer and the bottom of that slot are actually the same size, so the solid line of the chamfer is actually covering up that what would otherwise be another hidden line. Either way, I don't want to see that other view, so I'm going to click that, and I'll change that to just the regular wireframe as well. The ISO view doesn't really matter too much. I'm just going to make that a regular wireframe as well. So now, this lets us see the depth of the holes with this parent view, but it's a lot cleaner on the two daughter views. At this point, we can start adding dimensions. And we've got a few different options here. Now, the reason I chose this particular orientation of the part as opposed to one of the others is I am approaching this from the perspective of being a machinist. And when I put this into a lathe to make this part, my chuck is going to basically be right here. This would be sticking out of the machine, and I'm going to do all of my machining from this end back. So likewise, I want my dimensions to be from that end back. By the way, you can zoom in and out with the scroll wheel just like you can on the solid model. You can also click your scroll wheel and drag the sheet around. So this is just clicking the center scroll wheel and moving it. It doesn't rotate it like in the model. It just moves it around. So let's start putting some dimensions in. And we could just click Smart Dimension and start clicking things. So that will be suitable for this, where maybe we can call out our stock diameter right there and right there for our hole. By the way, I drew this in metric and it always defaults to inch-pound seconds. So I'm going to go ahead and change that on the fly to millimeters. And you can see it automatically changed our dimensions, but it does kind of kick us out of every command we were in. So I have to click Smart Dimension again. And now I can come over here and I can choose this circle, and it will tell me that it's a 12 millimeter diameter. And while I'm at it, I'm going to go ahead and click my chamfer and my boss here as well. And I'll click it over there. You can move all these around after the fact. So I can move this over here, for instance. Same thing there. I don't know if I'm going to keep those there because it might be a little bit muddy being able to tell what's what. We'll just have to see. For all of the length dimensions on this piece, I'm going to do what's going to make it cleanest, which is what's called ordinate dimensions. So I'm going to come to my Smart Dimensions icon, I'm going to click the drop down, and you have all these options for your dimensions. I'm going to just choose ordinate, and then the very first thing you click is going to be the 0 for that particular string of ordinate dimensions. So I'm going to click this corner right here, and you can see it just says 0 right there. And then every single time I click something else, it automatically puts in the dimension. So all I have to do is start clicking all of these points, and it'll snap the dimension right to it. This works very, very well for lengths. You see that it keeps everything nice and tidy in one line, and it makes it very easy to read. You can just follow the line and say, okay, that chamfer goes back 1 millimeter. From the end, the groove starts 6 millimeters. It's 1 millimeter wide, and you avoid having multiple datums. This is also way, way cleaner looking than if I just did regular Smart Dimensions. Let me actually show you that on the underside so you can see what that would normally look like. If I went from the end to this line, for instance, you'd have this, and then you'd have to do the same thing to there, and the same thing to there. And you can see this is going to start looking really muddy really fast. And it also takes up a lot more space. This is one way that you can make things look extra clean, easy to read for the person who's actually making this part. Because you get into all these little lines and things start disappearing pretty quickly. So I'm going to get rid of all these dimensions right here, all the extraneous ones. And I just clicked on them, left clicked on them, and then hit delete. I am going to use regular Smart Dimension for the depth of this hole. And I'm going to have the depth of the hole coming down from the bottom. That way it's not being confused with the dimensions up here on the top. Likewise, at the risk of having multiple datums, I'm going to have the dimensions for this hole coming off the backside. Now, this is a case where you really can't avoid multiple datums, because this would be done in a second operation on a machine anyway. At this point, you've machined everything else, you cut this piece off, you flip it around in the lathe and then face off the end, and now you're going to drill that hole. There's no way you're doing it from this end in the first operation. Now I have my chamfer beginning and end drawn here, so this is showing our full diameter on this stock. You could easily do it from this view and basically have that, and that may actually be a little bit clearer than this. But again, you run into the same problem where this chamfer right here, you know, what are you looking at? Are you looking at the end of the chamfer, or are you looking at the bottom of the groove? So that's something you have to consider when you're actually figuring out where your dimensions are going to be. Let me go ahead and delete these. Now the retaining ring groove, or O-ring groove, whatever this is a bit of a special case. I could click Smart Dimension. I'll have to zoom way in here and click those two lines, and it should look pretty readable. Once I hit escape, you can see that our dimension lines are coming off of that, and it says that it's a diameter of 23 millimeters. That's pretty clean. Another way of doing that would be with this, which is called a detail view. And I can click that. I can draw a little circle around that section of the part. Usually pops up with this. I'm just going to say OK. And I can put this detail that's shown in that circle that I just drew anywhere. And you can see that it shows a scale, as well as some other information about the detail. And over here in the bottom left, I've got my scale section. So I can click that drop down there, and I can blow it up to, let's say, 4:1 or maybe 8:1, something like that, whatever fits. I think 8:1 is a little big. I can drag that around just like any other view, and I can actually dimension this drawing as well. So if I go into Smart View, I can say that that's 1 millimeter deep and 1 millimeter wide. And from there, that's maybe not the most ideal way of doing things, but from there you'd be able to say, okay, well, that groove starts 6 millimeters back from the end, and those are the dimensions for it. That's not something that's strictly necessary, but for tiny little details like this, it's a good way to do it. I'm going to go ahead and undo all of that because I don't want that on my print. And let me show you a couple of other little things here. Speaking of scale, in this particular case, the scale ended up being 1:1, but you have a scale reading down here in the bottom right, and you can change the scale of your drawing. So if you have a really small part or a really large part, you can change the scale so that it will fit onto your page. That's a double-edged sword though, because sometimes you either make it so you can't see the various details of the part, especially on really large parts that are shrunk down, or you blow it up to the point where it's not usable on that particular size of sheet, and you have to go up to a different size sheet. I believe here I have everything pretty much dimensioned, and at this point I'm just gonna kind of make it look a little more readable. So I'm going to get my diameters roughly in the same spot. This one's a little hard just because yeah, maybe that looks good. All my ordinate dimensions, I think if I click the 0, it moves all of them. So So that's handy, and you see you can move the 0 around. Let's see, our ordinate view, pardon me, our isometric view, we'll kind of shift that around a little bit. It looks a little better centered on the page. Once you're happy with how everything looks on the page, you can pretty much save it and print it and all that. You will end up running into issues with where your dimensions will be if you use the sheet format. This video is already starting to get a bit long, so I'm going to cover the sheet format in part 2. I won't rehash too much of this. I'm not going to put all the dimensions on there, but there are some considerations when putting the views onto the part because you don't have as much real estate. What I really want to cover there is everything that's in the border and how to edit it. So stick around for that one. That'll be the next video. And if you have any questions about this or any other SolidWorks or machining topics, leave those down in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.